In his past life, Kim Jun-sun was an ordinary child, but when he was still very young, his parents died, and he began to look for various ways to earn money to pay off all their debts. As a student, Jun-sung never stopped looking for new ways to make money, and it seemed that he had already tried all the methods. While in college, Jun-sung became a professional esports player, and he began to earn a lot of money by participating in various gaming tournaments, for winning which he won a lot of money, with which he easily paid off all his parental debts. But despite all his fame, Jun-sung does not want people around him to know that he is a professional esportsman, and therefore at tournaments he uses the pseudonym Jun-hyuk, and in ordinary times he tries to disguise himself in every possible way. One school day, Jun-sung was approached by a classmate who was surprised at how Jun-sung was able to master such a complex curriculum so easily. At one point, she notices Jun-sung's new headband, and she asks him if she can try it on, but Jun-sung is against it. The classmate was very upset, and Jun-sung began to apologize and said that he had a good reason for not taking off this headband. Before Jun-sung could finish speaking, another classmate took and removed his headband without permission. After removing the headband, the girls noticed that Jun-sung looked very much like esportsman Jun-hyuk. Other classmates said that their quiet and inconspicuous classmate Jun-sung could not be a professional esports player, but there were those who found some similarities. Then one of the classmates suggests that Jun-sung wear her glasses, which were similar to the ones that Jun-hyuk wears, and at that moment Jun-sung realized that he had screwed up big time. When Jun-sung put on his glasses, all his classmates realized that their calm classmate was the same Jun-hyuk. Throughout the day, they surrounded Jun-sung with attention, asking him to play with them or saying that they were his fans who watched all the tournaments with his participation. Towards the end of the school day, Jun-sung climbed to the roof of the school, where he could finally be alone with his thoughts. The main reason why Jun-sung hid his involvement in professional esports was quick earnings and excessive attention to him, which would have brought him a bunch of different inconveniences in life. At that moment, the same classmate came to Jun-sung's rooftop and wanted to see his headband in order to apologize for what happened, since they didn't know that everything would happen like this. Jun-sung said that everything that happened was not her fault, and that she had nothing to apologize for. On the same day, Jun-sung was hit by a truck on his way home, and Jun-sung did not think that his difficult life would end so easily. At the moment of the collision, Jun-sung only wished that in his next life he would be rich and live without any problems. Then Jun-sung was reborn in another world in the body of a newborn child, whom his mother called with a new name El. At the age of 4, El learned from books that this world had about the same feudal system as in the Middle Ages. The new mother Ella was a third-class magician in this world, who lost her husband very early, and besides Ella she had no more relatives and friends. El also wanted to master various magical skills to please his mother, and he trained hard every day since childhood. One evening, Ella's mother, tired but cheerful, returns home and calls him Ellie. El has repeatedly asked his mother not to call him that, otherwise he will stop talking to her. Mom Ella was very upset by what she heard, calling him heartless for yelling at her like that. El started trying to apologize to his mother, and said that she could call him Ellie if only she would stop crying. Mom Ella immediately calmed down and began hugging her son, calling him sweet and kind, thereby showing him all her motherly love. The next day, Mama Ella was planning to go to a neighboring village to sell Recedo tea leaves. Ella's mother decided to warn her son that she was going to go to the neighboring village, but there was no answer, and she thinks that Ella is still sleeping. Entering the room, Mom saw how El was getting ready to go, and he said that he wanted to go with her this time. At first, the mother is touched by the fact that her beloved son wanted to take the initiative and go on the road with her. However, she immediately says that she is categorically against this, because on the way they may stumble upon some monsters that want to eat Ella. At that time, El had not yet told his mother that he could use magic. Ella also couldn't help but think that he needed to master new spells as quickly as possible, because if he became a 5th-class magician, he would be treated like a viscount. If El becomes a 7th-grade mage, he will become a powerful and wealthy mage who can live the rest of his life without worrying about anything. El told his mom that they would be okay and that if there was any danger, he would make sure to protect her from danger. Ella's mother could not resist such cuteness, and she still decides to take Ella with her on the journey. El promises his mom that he will do whatever she tells him and that he won't do anything dangerous. Before leaving, his mother Ella tells him that no matter what happens, she will definitely protect him. Mom began to worry that she and El had been walking without a break for several hours, to which El replied that he was not tired, since he had trained a lot before. El also added that future great magicians need to work on themselves from childhood in order to have a healthy body and an unshakable spirit. Then the mother remembers that during her studies at the Academy of Magicians she was told such wisdom a lot. El distracts his mother from her thoughts and shows her a flower that he read about in a book and said that if necessary, he could use it as a medicine, which once again convinced his mother that El was very smart. A little later they reached a place where Mom had set up a small place to rest during one of her hikes. At one point, El noticed strange sounds coming from the bushes. Meanwhile, a small group of orcs were advancing towards them when they smelled the scent of humans. Mom immediately covered El with herself so that he would not suffer in any way at the hands of the orcs. The orcs were very hungry, and they immediately prepared for battle, hoping that they would win and be able to feast on human flesh. El shouts to his mother that these orcs are very similar to green pigs, because he read somewhere that if you call an orc a green pig, it will immediately calm down. However, contrary to all El's expectations, the orcs became even more angry, and they immediately decided to attack them. Mom Ella was not taken aback and immediately prepared her spell to summon a fireball, with which she wanted to neutralize the orcs. After using the fireball, the orcs were hit by a bright burning flame that immediately disabled them. Mom El just grinned at El, calling these orcs green orcs. After such an attack, the orcs could do nothing but flee, fearing that they might be attacked again. El was incredibly surprised that his mother was able to defeat such a group of orcs so easily. El told his mother that she was very good at such powerful magic, which made her very happy. During lunch, Mom explained to El that orcs are very afraid of fire, but despite all this, even more dangerous monsters can live in this forest. Mom also explained that monsters like trolls and ogres are very difficult to defeat due to their amazing regeneration ability and very durable physique. El thought that if they could defeat at least one such monster, then they could make a lot of money, since troll blood is often used in alchemy, and ogre skin is very difficult to get. Mom tells El that their journey to Banzark village will take approximately 3 days, and El says that he can endure such a long journey. After 3 days of continuous travel, El and her mother finally reached the village of Banzark. El looked at Banzark and never ceased to be amazed at the beauty he saw. Once in Banzarka itself, Ella was haunted by the thought that for the first time in his life he felt as if he was in another world. After Elle and her mother got to Banzark, they headed to one of the local shops. Once inside, they were greeted by Mr. Dibble, the owner of this store. The first thing Mr. Dibble noticed was that this time Mom Ella did not come alone. Then Mom introduced Ella to Mr. Dibble, calling him the most reliable companion, and also calling him a smart and sweet boy. Then Mr. greeted Elle and noticed his unusual eye color, which was not at all similar to the eye color of his peers. Mr. Dibble apologized to Ella's mother and said that she truly had an amazing son. After this, Mama Ella showed Mr. Dibble Recedo tea leaves of excellent quality and variety. Mr. Dibble appreciated the tea leaves and said that he was ready to pay an additional 5 gold for them, since people usually do not manage to get goods of such high quality. Elle noticed how well Mr. Dibble dealt with people and priced goods fairly, and he thought that if he had to do business with any store in the future, it would definitely be Mr. Dibble's store. After that, Elle and Mom didn't stay long in the store, and they decided to leave the store. After their visit, Mr. Dibble sat down at his table and did not stop thinking that Elle would definitely become a great man in the future. After that, Elle and her mother went to the magic tower to sell mana stones with runes there. Mana stones made it easy for anyone to use magic, but because each stone could only be used once, they were very expensive. Elle thought that with his technique he could create rune stones without any problems, but since the materials to create them were very expensive, he simply could not risk creating them. Then he asks his mother if he can buy the necessary grimoires from the magic tower. Also in the magic tower it was possible to purchase magic books of the 9th and 10th grades, which will help to achieve the corresponding class of magic. At the moment, the best magician on the continent was able to reach the 9th level of magic, but until now no one could surpass him in terms of magic skills. Ella was struck by the fact that among all the classes there was also a 10th class of magic, which changed his plans for mastering magic a little. Elle immediately asked her mother to buy him 8th and 9th grade grimoires, and such a desire made her very happy. Once in the Magic Tower, they were greeted by the Vice Master of the Magic Academy. Mom Ella showed the Vice Master her mana stones, which seemed very good to him. The Vice Master wanted to know who this boy was and began to squeeze Elle's face, which Elle himself did not really like. After this, the Vice Master introduced Ella's mother to his son Gedrick, who possessed first-class magic. Then the Vice Master told his son to show the guests how he could summon an energy ball. Then the boy, with great effort, was still able to summon a small energy ball. Mom Ella was surprised by the skills of the Vice Master's son, and she couldn't wait to find out how powerful a magician he could become. The Vice Master grabbed Elle's mother by the hands and promised her that if she was with him, Elle would be as skilled in magic as Gedrick. Elle didn't like how some guy was pestering his mom, and he tells everyone that he, too, can create an energy ball. Everyone was shocked by what they heard, and his mother asked Elle why he was telling everyone such things. Then Elle concentrated all his magical power and began to create a huge ball of energy. Elle created a giant energy ball that was tens of times the size of Gedrick's energy ball. Mom Ella looked at her son's energy ball and was surprised at how much powerful magical power it contained. After summoning the energy ball, Ella's mother immediately rushed into her son's arms and did not stop praising him, calling him the best magician in the world. After that, the master burst into the room, who wanted to find out who could demonstrate such magic. The master began to look for the person who created such a large energy ball, hoping to find a 7th-class magician. After that, he saw Elle in front of him and said that he had never seen such an unusual swindler, since, according to the master, Elle's eyes did not correspond to his real age. Elle did not fully understand the master's words, and he explained that sages like the master can find out everything about a person, and for this he just needs to look into his eyes. A couple of minutes later, Elle and the master went to the library of the Magic Tower, where the master wanted to talk to Elle alone. The master told Elle that his magic was at the 1st level, but his mana was enormous, and he was surprised at how Elle was able to develop his mana so much in such a short time. The master also told Elle that in terms of combat skills, a 7th-level mage is comparable to a sword master, but due to the limited mana on the battlefield, mages have a higher chance of dying in battle than experienced knights, and he wanted to find out from Elle how he managed to increase it so much your mana. Elle immediately realized that the master was just trying to learn such a powerful magical technique from him. The master was very surprised by such youthful audacity, and he promised to provide Elle with the appropriate amount for such information. The master offered Elle 10,000 gold coins, with which even his grandchildren could live in luxury and not deny themselves anything, but Elle refused such a price and said that he needed mana stones and grimoires of the 8th and 9th grade. The master did not understand why he needed all this, but if he needed them so badly, he prepared 100 mana stones and several grimoires. Elle thanked the master for such a profitable deal for both of them. The master did not understand why. When communicating with Elle, he had the impression that he was talking with a great magician. Before leaving the library, Elle asked the master not to tell anyone what Elle had given him. When Elle and his mother returned home, his mother began to question him about how he was able to use such magic in such a short time. In his past life, Elle spent all his free time studying because he wanted to not only attend college, but also have a good life in the future. Of all the school subjects, he liked mathematics most, and he received incredible pleasure after solving any difficult problem. Once in this world, Elle noticed that the magic formulas here are a little more complicated than the mathematical ones, and it was thanks to the fact that he remembered these mathematical formulas from his past life that he was able to reduce the time of using magic to a noticeable minimum. Of course, Elle could not teach his mother the mathematical formulas, and he decided to provide her with ready-made magic formulas right away, with which his mother was able to use her spells with the same power in much less time. Mom Ella couldn't help but be happy that she had such a smart son, and she asked to teach him some other different techniques. After 2 years, Elle and his mother moved closer to the Banzarka Magic Tower, and his mother was able to become a 4th-level magician. One day, during their next trip to Banzark, Elle and his mother came across slave traders who kept 2 emaciated girls with them. Elle and her mother could not allow this to happen, and they decided to punish this group of slave traders. Mom Ella was a very conscientious woman, and she could not tolerate such behavior. Mom Ella felt that it was simply useless to have any dialogue with such people, and she decided to use her magic against them. Elle decides to help her mother and also uses her magic against the villains, as a result of which all the slave traders fled, leaving the girls alone. After such an attack, Elle and her mother removed all the shackles from the exhausted girls and said that they were now safe. Mama Ella learned from the girls that they wanted to find their families, but when they said they had nowhere to return, she allowed them to live with her and Ella. Many years passed. Elle was already 12 years old, and he and his mother and these girls lived together in peace and harmony. On one of these days, Serena, one of those girls, decided to wake up Ella using the wind magic she had mastered. Ella woke up and was surprised at how Serena was able to improve her magical skills in such a short time. Serena said that at first it was difficult to master any magic, but each time she found it more and more fun and interesting to learn new spells, and over time, learning magic ceased to be a tedious task for her. When Elle went down to the first floor, he noticed that Kaina, the second girl, was not at home. Serena said that Kaina has been going out more and more lately to practice her sword skills. At the same moment, Kaina returned back to the house and greeted Ella and Serena. Elle greeted Kaina and praised her, telling her that her skills were getting better every day. Kaina said that every time she swings her sword, she feels like she is getting stronger each time. At first, Kaina wanted to demonstrate her skills to Elle and Serena, but Elle politely said that he would be happy to appreciate her fighting skills when they go outside. Kaina and Elle were about the same age, while Serena was 2 years older than them, and it appears that they used to be isolated from the rest of the world, and that they used to have extremely difficult lives. But despite their background, the girls quickly settled into their new home and family, and Elle taught them from that moment on. Serena had a talent for magic spells, and she easily became a first-level magician. Meanwhile, Kaina had an excellent physique and was good with a sword. Elle was very happy for the girls, and he was calm that they were able to find a new home and a new family. A couple of minutes later, their mother came to them, who was simply beaming with joy, and Elle decided to find out from her what such a good thing had not happened. Mom said that yesterday she officially became a 5th grade master. Everyone was very happy for her, and everyone started congratulating her on such a great achievement. Elle suggested that everyone should celebrate such an event, but at first no one understood Elle's idea. Then Elle suggested that they all visit the magic tower, and everyone approved of this idea. When they were all inside the tower, the master saw Elle and was surprised at how much he had grown since their last meeting. Elle was also happy to see the master and congratulated him on his recent victory in the battle against the sword master, telling him that the master was getting stronger. The master said that this was all only thanks to the technique that Elle once revealed to him. After that, everyone sat down at the table to find out why Elle wanted to visit the magic tower. Then Elle took out his bag from his bosom and poured a handful of magic stones onto the table. The master was surprised that Elle was able to create such an item, as it was one of the most difficult items that Elle was able to make on his own. Such magic stones were much more valuable than mana stones, which could only be used once every few years, while magic stones could be used up to 10 times, and their recovery time took only 3 days. It was because of these stones that magicians from other magic towers from all over the continent were tracking down Ella's house. But during all this time nothing strange happened. Therefore, Elle suggested that such stones might be of great interest to the master, and he realized that Elle wanted to get something in return. Elle said that he only needed 4 things so that the Banzarka Magic Tower could obtain the rights to use the technique of creating magic stones for their further production, and the first of these things was a request to provide his family with protection. Ella's second request was to be able to receive some books of witchcraft, and books on swordsmanship so that the girls could further develop their skills. Ella's third request was to rent a nice hotel for his mother, who had recently been able to become a 5th-level mage, and he wanted to organize a luxurious vacation for her in honor of this. Mom Ella could not contain her emotions and began to hug her son tightly for the fact that he was trying so hard to do for her. Ella's last request was to get books on creating golems. The master was surprised by Elle's last request, since even with all the necessary instructions, Elle would not be able to create a golem. In response, Elle said that he was simply interested in learning how golems could be created, but it was with the help of golems that Elle intended to achieve his goal. For years past, the life of Ella and his family prospered and they lived in abundance. One night, a couple of bandits were going to capture the creator of magic stones and bring him to their boss. The bandits were ordered to get into the house, find the creator of the magic stones and bring him back safe and sound, which initially seemed to them a very difficult task. Then one of the bandits offered to simply take and get rid of the creator of the magic stones if he showed any resistance, despite the fact that they were ordered to bring him alive. Then El immediately appeared in front of the bandits, which scared them very much, and he said that this was a very good idea. After that, behind the bandits there was a small group of large battle golems, which El created. One of the golems immediately grabbed one of the bandits to neutralize him. The captured bandit tried to free himself from the golem's hands, but when he tried to hit him with his swords, the swords immediately split into several pieces. The bandits had no chance to resist such formidable opponents. After a couple of blows, the golems grabbed both bandits, who lost consciousness, and dragged them in an unknown direction. El thought that even though these golems were unfinished, they showed their abilities very well during the battle. After El received books on creating golems from the master of the magic tower, he began to spend a lot of time creating them and simply immersed himself in the process. However, despite such good efficiency, they were still not suitable for the purpose that El wanted to achieve. After this, El decides to clean up the traces of the bandits' blood that they left behind the golems, so that Mom and the girls won't see these traces. The next morning, Serena woke up earlier as usual and already started preparing breakfast for everyone. El greeted Serena and acted as if nothing strange had happened yesterday. A little later, Kaina came home, again practicing her fighting skills. Kaina invited El to show her new fighting techniques, which she learned on the street during training, but El said that he would definitely look at her techniques later. El was glad that everything is happening as usual today, after which he decides to ask the girls where Mom is now. Meanwhile, their mother was training to use her magical skills, but this time she had some difficulties. This time, her magic was suddenly out of control, and she was afraid that a little more and her magic would become completely uncontrollable. After that, her magical fireball disappeared, causing her to fall to her knees from exhaustion. At that moment, Elle and the girls found their mother and asked her to come home, have breakfast and at least take a little break from training. Elle told his mother that she should not overexert herself during training, since she was already very good at magic. Mom didn't believe Elle's words and said that it was all a lie, and that she should become a 6th-level magician. Elle noticed that his mother was acting extremely strange, and he did not understand what happened to his mother. Then Elle remembered that in a past life he used one secret technique to increase concentration. Then he decides to teach the mother and girls the belly breathing technique, in which a person inhales through the nose and exhales through the mouth, due to which all the pressure is redirected to one point and increases strength. Everyone focused on performing this technique and began to inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. After this technique, it was more difficult for Serena to breathe, since she performed this technique too quickly. Kaina's abdominal muscles began to cramp because she was putting in too much effort while breathing. Elle said that he usually doesn't pay attention to his breathing technique, since even he found the technique a little difficult to perform. Meanwhile, Mom began to succeed in performing this technique, and Elle noticed how a lot of mana began to condense around Mom. Mom only thought about how Elle was able to learn such a technique on his own without anyone's help and at the same time teach such a technique to her and the girls, and that she must become stronger in order for them all to live happily. Mom could not stop feeling how her energy continued to grow and how her body and spirit were becoming stronger. After Mom concentrated, she created a huge fireball that she was able to control with ease. From a huge fireball, Mom was able to create a beautiful fiery horse, which greatly surprised Ed and the girls. The boys immediately began congratulating their mother on how easily she was able to perform such a technique, and they also continued to feel all the magical power emanating from her. Mom began to thank Elle for teaching her such a technique, because now she will definitely be able to become a 6th-level magician. Elle was glad that his mother had a smile on her face again, and that everything was working out for her again. A little later, everyone returned home to discuss over lunch how Mom was one step closer to the new class. But despite this, my mother was worried that lately Elle had increasingly begun to retire to the workshop, which is why they began to communicate with each other less and less. At this point, Elle returned to the workshop right after lunch, where he was discussing how difficult it still was to create the most powerful golem on the continent. El was still planning to create an artificial monster that could have independent thinking. One of the most difficult stages in creating such a golem was mastering very complex mental magic, which is only available to 8th grade magicians. El's only option in his class was to use dark magic, in which he must put together all his most sinister thoughts and emotions. But even though El understood all this very well in theory, in practice El was too low in class. Also, such magic would not give him any effect, since the entire effect is available only to magicians of the 7th level. Due to such difficulties, El was unable to put his original plan into action, and he first needed to reach the 7th grade. Suddenly Serena entered the workshop to remind him about the beginning of his magical training. El remembered that Serena was struggling with some basics. Serena said that she didn't fully understand the whole essence and nature of mana, but El didn't quite understand what Serena meant. At first, Serena tried to explain to El that he could feel a magical response when mana filled his body. Serena also said that most likely it all depends on the type of mana, since every time she feels several types of mana at once, which gather in her into a single clot. Here El thought about the fact that mana can actually differ in different types and characteristics. Serena said that these were just her guesses, that most likely she shouldn't take her words seriously. Then El went to his desk to test Serena's hypothesis about the difference in types and characteristics of mana. El took out several mana stones from his desk drawer and felt that each stone emanated its own special mana. El sensed how the mana of each stone was different from the mana of other stones, and how these different types of mana mixed and formed a powerful magical cluster. El was amazed that he had not noticed such an important and useful magical feature before, and he decides to learn a little more about this feature in practice. El concentrated several types of mana in himself at once in order to feel this entire magical accumulation. After this, El found himself in a space unknown to him, in which he could visually see the differences between types of mana in the form of millions of bright stars in the sky. El remembered how, in a game he played in his previous life, the composition of a unit could give a great advantage later in the game, and he assumed that various combinations could greatly enhance his magical skills. After this, El decides to try to combine all the types of mana that came from the mana stones. El was going to create a completely new magical power that Serena told him about. At first, Ella found it extremely difficult to contain and tried to control such outgoing force, even using her special breathing technique. But despite all these difficulties, El hoped that if he succeeded, it would be much easier to get the 7th grade. After combining so many types of mana, El mentally found himself in a kind of sanctuary, in which, from even more types of mana, there were even more stars. In this sanctuary, El saw the bright silhouette of a bird, the light from which was many times brighter than from any star in this space, and El followed this bird. When El woke up, Serena was in front of him, who began to worry about him, and tried to wake up El. Serena told El that a powerful whirlwind appeared around him, causing him to lose consciousness and fall to the floor. By this point, Serena was starting to worry as El stopped responding to her excited cries. When El fully regained consciousness, he noticed that his class had increased. El was very grateful to Serena for telling him that several types of mana could exist in this world. Serena just looked at El and thought about how amazing he was and how hard he was working to become stronger. Then Serena decides to ask El what kind of magic class he received. Serena also noticed that El's magical aura was much larger and stronger than her mother's, to which El asked Serena to keep it all a secret. Meanwhile, El began to think that it was time for him to move on to the next stage of creating the most powerful golem. At that moment, Mom was sitting on the hill and looking at the house, thinking that it was a wonderful place. Mom also looked at the portrait of Rayon, her husband and Ella's father, and said that she would make every effort to protect their sleep from any dangers. Ella's 17th birthday arrived, and on this day he cooked breakfast for everyone. El decided to make porridge as the first dish for everyone, which everyone really liked. However, despite such a delicious breakfast, his mother said that she herself would like to make breakfast for everyone on his birthday. But to his mother's words, El replied that he was happy to cook food for everyone, since he loved to cook very much. The next dish El wanted to treat his family to was fried rice with kimchi. At first, El had some difficulties with cooking, since getting rice cereal, cabbage and all the necessary spices in this world turned out to be somewhat more difficult than in the previous world. Among other things, Elle also used magic to prepare kimchi under such conditions. Everyone was delighted with the appetizing appearance of the dish, which made Ella very happy. At first everyone thought the dish was a little spicy, but despite this everyone really enjoyed the dish. After everyone had eaten their portions, everyone began asking Elle for more, which made him very pleased that everyone liked his dish so much. A few minutes later, Elle was washing the dishes and couldn't stop thinking about how much everyone liked his food. At that moment, Elle's mother approached him with a request to talk to him about a very serious topic. Elle looked at his mother and saw her extremely serious expression, which he most likely had never seen on his mother's face. A few minutes later, Elle and her mother were left alone in the room to talk without unnecessary witnesses. At first they were silent for a while, and Elle thought that perhaps this was some kind of difficult topic for Mom. At first, Elle thought that she didn't like the food he prepared for everyone today, after which he immediately rejected this option. Suddenly, his mother said that she hid her past and his father's past from him, but now that Ella is 17 years old, she is finally ready to tell him everything. First of all, she said that she was the daughter of Marquis Einhart from the Bliard Empire, and her real name was Silfer von Einhart. This news simply amazed Ella, since the Bliard Empire was one of the most powerful empires on the continent. In addition, the Einhart family was one of the most influential families of aristocratic magicians, in which only the most capable children were born. There was also a rumor about this family that Marquis Einhart almost managed to become an 8th-grade magician, while his son had power equal to that of a 7th-grade magic master. Ella was also interested in the origin of her mother's pendant, which only 7th-grade magicians can create. Elle also remembered that in their library there are books that are extremely difficult for ordinary people to get, and only very rich and influential people can have such books. Mom continued the story and said that her mother died 4 days after she was born, and therefore she was raised by a very strict father and older brother. When she was 7 years old, her father betrothed her to the prince of the Bliard Empire. However, she did not want this at all, and she wanted to live freely and live the way she wanted it. Years later, she met Rayon Luvius, Elle's real father, and she immediately fell in love with him at first sight. Despite the fact that he had neither any special skills, nor attractive appearance, nor any wealth, he was the only one with whom she could calmly dream of freedom. Her father originally planned to marry her to a prince when she turned 17, but even before that, she ran away from home with Rayon. Even though they were pursued by her father's guards, she was truly happy with Rayon. But their shared happiness did not last long, and less than a year later they were caught by the Einhart family's guards so that her father could personally separate them. Her father promised that he would free him, but first he allowed her to say goodbye to Rayon. She started to apologize to Rayon for putting him through all this, but Rayon didn't care and just wanted to know if she would stay in the family. She only thanked Rayon for the fact that thanks to him she felt true freedom for the first time, and for the fact that being next to him made her feel happy. After that, she told Rayon to move on and be happy without her, despite the fact that it would be difficult for her to live without a person like him. Rayon only said that even if they were separated from each other, they would still be together. Immediately after this dialogue, one of the guards killed Rayon by cutting off his head, which left Sylphyr in the deepest shock. Her father said that she should be grateful to him for freeing her from such pain and for allowing her to have one last word with him before her inevitable execution. Then her father did not forgive her, as when the engagement to the prince was broken, he simply kicked her out. Before she left the family home, her father told her that she could return back to the family when she became a 6th-grade mage. That day she was going to end her suffering, but that's when she realized that she was pregnant. At that moment she was the happiest girl in the world, and she wanted to do everything to make her unborn child happy. She wanted to give Ella everything that she was not given in her childhood: happiness and freedom, and only for this she lived. After Mom told Ella everything, she said that she was going to take back her last name. Now that she has reached 6th grade, she can finally return back to her family, where she is sure to be accepted. She said that everything there is much better than here, and that there she can give him something more suitable so that Elle can continue to learn magic, and she invites Elle to return there together. Elle didn't understand why his mother so wanted to return to these terrible people who kicked her out and left her alone in such a difficult moment. The treatment of aristocrats differed significantly between the Bliard Empire and the empire in which they lived, since families such as the Einhart family were in the same social position as the Imperial family. Mom said that she wanted El to continue his training in magic in a more favorable environment that the Einhart family could provide him, and she asked El to think about it. El said that he would definitely think about such an offer later, but for now he had to go. Mom was glad that now her son knew the whole truth, which made her feel incredible spiritual relief. After such a difficult conversation, El hugged his mother, which made them both feel much better after such a conversation. When El left his mother's room, he saw Serena and Kaina standing near the door, who had overheard their entire conversation. Serena and Kaina were worried that serving El and his mother as slaves would make the Einhart family reluctant to accept them both. El calmed the girls down and told them that he could introduce them to the Einhart family as registered mercenaries, and then they could also be together. The girls immediately calmed down, and they thanked Ella for such a brilliant idea. After that, El told the girls to start packing their things while he had to go to a place that his mom shouldn't know about. El fully understood that there was no way he could dissuade his mother from returning. After some time, El decides to visit Mr. Dibel's store, whose business continued to flourish. When Mr. Dibel met El, he began to thank El for the fact that it was thanks to his rights to produce and sell mana stones that his store attracted even more customers, which led to good economic growth for his store. El wanted to ask Mr. Dibel if he could get any information. Mr. Dibel said that he had his own partnerships with all the information guilds on the continent, and that he could even tell about the secret treasures of the royal family. Then El asked Mr. Dibel to tell him everything about the Einhart family from the Bliard Empire. Immediately, Mr. Dibel noticed El's extremely serious gaze, from which the atmosphere became much more gloomy. Mr. Dibel began by saying that the Einhart family's history was over 700 years old, and that the family was one of the most prestigious and influential families in the history of the Bliard Empire. Also, during the entire existence of the Einhart family, as many as 3 magicians of the 8th magician were born into it. The Einhart family was so powerful that they could easily turn people against imperial power. Mr. Dibel also mentioned the infamous event involving the broken engagement of the Marquis's daughter to the Crown Prince, after which the Marquis's daughter ran away with another man. However, the story said that the Marquis and the Crown Prince showed their mercy and forgave her, and also allowed her to continue to live a quiet life, after which the Marquis beheaded the very same person, and many aristocrats praised such an act. Then El noticed that this story was different from what his mother had told him, and then he realized that his mother was being used in this story as a tool to confirm their lies. Mr. Dibel also added that there are also rumors that say that the Marquis was an extremely ruthless and cruel person who was ready to do anything to preserve the reputation of his family, and that it would be better not to get involved with such a person. Then El thought that if his mother returned to the family, they could use her, but El could not allow anyone to even try to harm his loved ones. El thanked Mr. Dibel for the information he provided, and El was about to leave the store, but Mr. Dibel told him that no one had come to the Magic Tower Master for a long time. Then El also decides to finally visit the Master of the Magic Tower. The Tower Master says that he is somehow sad to realize that for such a long time El was the first who wanted to visit him, to which El says that he did not come to him empty-handed. El took out a sheet of paper folded several times, which contained a detailed plan for improving the Golem Knight, after which he gave this plan to the Master. The Master was amazed at such a valuable gift that El had prepared for him, after which he began to study this plan. El said that it is almost impossible for a golem to create its own consciousness, and therefore the golem must be controlled by a knight. While the Master was studying the new plan, he felt that El was not saying something about this improvement. El said that he was a little tired of all these experiments, and that very soon he would leave the village, which is why he most likely would not see the Master again. At first the Master did not believe that El would soon leave him forever, but looking at El's face, he realized that the matter was extremely serious. Then the Master approached Ella and said that someday everyone will know about Ella and his incredible skills. The Master is also confident that when this happens, he will definitely be about him, regardless of where he will be and what he will become famous for. These words touched El very much, and he said that in the future he would definitely visit the Master again. That evening, El was putting the finishing touches on his plan in his workshop. El then used some mana stones again to create a new kind of mana to summon his war golem. After this spell, his powerful golem knight in golden armor appeared from the portal, which was many times larger than Ella himself. After the summoning, El ordered the golem to awaken in order to briefly test its functioning and performance. After the awakening command, the golem awoke and greeted its creator. Even though the golem was reacting correctly now, El thought that his golem still had some flaws, one of which was that the ego was not the best one to revive it. After this, El told the golem that after some time he had completed one task for El, but until that moment he should remain in the dimensional pocket from which El summoned the golem. The golem said that he would wait for his moment, after which he returned to the portal from which he came. El hoped that he would not have to witness the full power of his golem, after which he thinks that it is time to go. Meanwhile, at the Einhard estate, the Marquis and his son were playing chess, and the son said that he had completed the investigation into the sale of magic stones, and that he had found the source of these stones. The Marquis was simply happy with this news since he had been trying for a long time to get on the trail of the one who creates these magic stones, and finally, after so many years of searching, he found him. However, the Marquis wanted to know why his son took up this business only now, when his father asked him to take it up several years ago. The eldest son replied that he had been trying to track down the inventor all these years, but his golems had created a number of difficulties. He said that all the mercenaries and assassins he sent and hired on this matter were mercilessly killed by these golems. The Marquis considered that this man was quite a serious opponent, since he was able to create what others could not do. The eldest son added that all the magic towers on the continent simply abandoned all attempts to look for magic stones. He also said that the production of such magic stones is quite inexpensive, and therefore such artifacts can bring them a lot of money. Then the Marquis believed that if they could sell such items in one of the 10 stores on the continent, their family store would become the most profitable store. The Marquis's son looked at all this from the outside and did not understand how a person like his father, who usually does not give compliments to just anyone, began to admire some stones. The son finally tells his father that this same inventor is Silphur, or rather, her son El, who recently turned 17 years old, which greatly surprised the Marquis himself. Then the Marquis ordered to bring him his daughter, whom he had kicked out of the family many years ago. The Marquis hoped that his daughter would definitely want to return to the family, especially with her son. At the same time, the Marquis did not stop thinking about how his family would prosper when they learned the secret of creating magic stones. The eldest son wanted to find out from his father what to do with the Crown Prince, who most likely would not be happy with the news that Sylphyr had returned to the family. To which the Marquis replied that it was better not to tell him about it. The Marquis naively hoped that the daughter he had expelled would definitely want to return to the family and help her family. The next day, El, her mother and the girls went to the Einhard family, leaving their old home forever, to which they are unlikely to return. El was glad that they were all returning to the Einhard family together without any bad memories. El also wanted to tell his mother that he had become a 7th grade SAG, but he didn't know how to explain to her how such a young guy could reach such a high class, while many cannot reach such a class in their entire lives. El also had a hard time imagining how he could explain his magical powers in the event of an emergency. After some time, El, her mother and the girls were in the village, where they were going to go to Keffermill, the place of residence of the Einhard family, using the teleportation service. Mom approached the man who was in charge of the teleport to find out the amount needed for teleportation. The man says that teleportation will cost 200 gold coins per person, and for 4 people 800 gold coins. Mom said that it was too expensive for them, to which the man grabbed her hand and said that such thicket portals are used by influential people who have money for it. Kaina couldn't look at what this man was doing, and she decided to swing her leg at him. A minute later, another man approached them, who was surprised that this man had created such a trivial problem. He asked his mother for forgiveness for his colleague causing them such inconvenience. After his apologies, he approached the man who was sitting near the portal and told him to get out of his place. The man said that they owed 400 gold coins for teleporting to Keffermill, and also because there were 4 of them, they were given a discount, and in the end they owed 360 gold coins. Mom was very happy that the price was so low, while El thought that they almost overpaid for all this by almost 2 times. The man wondered why they were going to Keffermill, to which the mother replied that they were moving there to live. The man said that in such a strong family they all feel very confident, after which everyone turned their gaze to Kaina. A minute later, everyone was standing on the teleportation device, and everyone was ready to move to Kefremil. A moment later, Elle, her mother and the girls were already in another teleportation device, which was located not far from Kefremil. After some time, everyone reached the capital, which simply fascinated everyone with its beauty. Mom said that the first thing they need to do is find a place to live temporarily. After that, Mom wanted to register Serena and Kaina as mercenaries, and she was sure that they would be perceived as future professionals. Mom also suggested that after registering Serena and Kaina, they take a walk around the city to show the local surroundings and attractions. At that moment, Mom heard a familiar voice say her name, and it turned out to be the Crown Prince, with whom Mom once broke off her engagement. The Crown Prince did not look or behave in any way hostile towards his mother, but was even somewhat polite and hospitable. Elle looked at this man and recognized the same prince who was his mother's former fiancé. Elle remembered Mr. Dibel's story about how Rayon Luvius was brutally and mercilessly killed by the guards in front of his mother, since it was the Crown Prince who gave the order to the guards to execute his father. Meanwhile, the prince did not stop complimenting Ella's mother. The prince also said that despite some disagreements in the past, he is still glad to see her, and know that she is alive and well. After flattering compliments, the prince decided to ask his mother who these children were, to which his mother did not know how to answer him. Kaina told Serena that this gentleman was not at all like the vile man her mother had told her about. Elle looked into the prince's eyes and saw in them all the feigned politeness behind which he is trying to hide all his bad intentions. The prince continued to give his mother compliments that she was still as attractive as in those years, and that she was still the most beautiful girl in the world. At the same time, the prince thought to himself that he would still get her at any cost. Elle clearly saw how the prince was trying not to show his true plans and his bad character. Then Elle decides to intervene in the conversation and, with a smiling and unremarkable expression on her face, asks the prince if he knows his mother. Elle introduced himself to the prince as his mother's son, thinking to himself that this prince could not look so badly at his mother with such a vile and disgusting look. The prince only told Elle with the same polite and smiling face that he was indeed very similar to his mother. After this, the prince said that he was glad to have such an unexpected meeting, and suggested that they meet again someday, to which Elle said that he would look forward to their next meeting. After such a conversation, the prince walked past his mother, and told her in a whisper in her ear that she was still his woman. Elle heard what the prince said to his mother, and shouted after him that very soon he would regret what he did to his mother. The prince did not pay any attention to Elle and simply thought that Sylphar was finally returning to the family. The prince also thought it was a good idea to try to make Sylphar his mistress again, and to do this he needed to get rid of Elle. Elle notices that something is wrong with his mother, and he decides to calm her down. Mom said that she just needed to pull herself together, after which she invited everyone to go to the guild to register the girls there as mercenaries. After some time, Mom, Elle and the girls arrived at the guild and were about to start the exam. The man explained to them that after the exam, the girls will receive a mercenary rank from rank F to rank B, which depends on how well they perform against the guild master. Later, the head of the guild himself appeared, who was surprised that he would conduct an exam with the girls. Then the head of the guild proposes to conduct the exam against Serena and Kaina at the same time. The guild leader told the girls that he would not hurt them, naively assuming that they would not be able to defeat him. The girls were somewhat surprised by such naivety of the head of the guild, and together they decide not to feel sorry for him during the exam. A couple of minutes later, the girls and the head of the guild were in the arena for the exam. The guild leader told the girls to give it their all, and then the girls prepared to attack. Kaina took out her sword and prepared to use a fire sword attack to hit the guild master as hard as possible. After such an attack, Serena prepared to use the combat spell Wind Sword to knock out the last strength from the coach. At first they began to worry that they had slightly gone too far with their real capabilities, and that they could seriously injure the head of the guild. However, the exhausted guild leader was able to find the strength to regain consciousness and informed the girls that they were both receiving rank B. Elle was incredibly glad that the girls were so easily able to achieve the highest rank of mercenary. The girls were also happy about this news, and they wanted to find out from their mother whether this would be enough for them to protect her. Meanwhile, Mom was a little distracted and with a sad expression on her face, she was thinking about something of her own. After that, the mother turned her attention to the girls and also congratulated them on successfully passing the exam. Elle, of course, noticed that something was wrong with his mother, which made him also begin to worry a lot about her. That evening, my mother sat in the hotel and couldn't stop thinking that the prince had not changed in any way over all these years. She was afraid that this prince would make every effort to make him his mistress, after which he would definitely want to do to Elle the same thing that he once did to Rayan. She couldn't let anyone harm her son, and she was willing to do anything for him. She just wanted to quietly and peacefully return to her family. But after meeting the prince, she realized that now it would be much more difficult, and she began to think that the Einhart family should side with Elle and protect him. Meanwhile, Elle and the girls had just returned to their mother's room. When Elle entered the room, his mother immediately suggested that he give the Einhart family his secret of creating magic stones. Mom also said that at the moment the entire continent is obsessed with the idea of creating magic stones, and if Elle teaches the Einhart family to create magic stones on their own, then they will definitely accept and protect Elle. Elle told his mother that they shouldn't do this, since he was able to independently protect both himself and his mother and the girls. Serena and Kana said that they are also able to protect each other from any danger. After all that had been said, Elle and the girls invited their mother to have a little drink with them. The girls also brought food along with the drinks, since they still hadn't eaten anything today. Mom felt a little better at heart, and she decided to have a little snack and drink with everyone. Elle thought that in his previous life he could not help his late parents with their debts. However, in this life, Elle had all the necessary knowledge and skills to help his mother and girls, and he promised himself that he would give his mother and girls what his parents could not give him in his previous life. The next day, Elle, her mother and the girls were supposed to be heading to the Einhart family estate, and he hoped that everything would go there without any incident. A couple of hours later, Elle, her mother and the girls were already standing near the gates of the Einhart estate. Elle and the girls were amazed at the size of the estate, which was even larger than the village of Banzark. First, my mother looked at the estate and realized that it had not changed in any way since the moment she was kicked out of the family, after which she approached the guard and demanded to let them in. At first the guard did not want to let them in, but she said that Silfer Einhart wanted to return home after 17 years in exile. Then the guard apologized and ran to the estate to inform the Marquis about the arrival of his daughter. While Mom was waiting, she remembered that there was a rumor across the continent that after the Marquis drove away his daughter, the power of the Einhart family began to decrease, and her father fell into such depression that he did not eat or drink for a whole month. She also didn't understand what her father meant when, after Rayan's execution, her father told her that she should be grateful to him. Elle again noticed that Mom was again thinking about something bad, and he put his hand on her shoulder, letting her know that everything would be fine. In the distance, my mother noticed her father, Marquis, and her older brother, who were heading in their direction. The Marquis immediately grabbed onto his daughter and began to apologize to her for what he had done. Elle looked at it from the outside and didn't understand how a man like the Marquis, who spent his entire life striving for glory for his family, would so sincerely apologize to the daughter he banished, and apparently he had some good reason for this. A little later, the Marquis notices his daughter Ella and asks her who this young man is. Mom told Marquis that this boy was her son, and at the same time his grandson, after which Elle himself introduced himself to his grandfather. At first glance, the Marquis seemed to be a very friendly and benevolent person, but Elle saw how the Marquis began to inspect his magical energy. The Marquis was very surprised that such a young boy was already in 5th grade. The Marquis continued to examine Elle's mana, and Elle couldn't stop thinking about how he couldn't let the Marquis find out that he was actually in the 7th grade. At one point, Silfer's elder brother suggested continuing such a pleasant conversation inside the estate, and the Marquis supported this idea, after which everyone headed to the estate. A few minutes later, Elle, his mom, her older brother, and Marquis were sitting at the dinner table having a family conversation, while Serena and Kaina were sent to rest. The Marquis decided to immediately ask his daughter if she was the creator of magic stones. At the same time, the Marquis thought that when they learn how to create magic stones, their fortune will double, which will make their influence even greater, and then the Einhart family will become the most powerful on the continent. Elle looked at the Marquis and saw all his greed in his eyes, suspecting something was wrong. The Marquis told Syl that now that she has returned to the family, she must contribute to this family, as it is her duty. Syl said that first her father must recognize Ella as a new member of the Einhart family. Sylphyr said that it was her son who developed a new way to create magic stones, and that she had nothing to do with the creation of magic stones. She also pointed out to her father that when he looked at El, he saw him as a 5th grade master, from which El concluded that she also noticed how her father looked at him. Sylphyr also added that despite the fact that there were 3 8th grade mages in the Einhart family, no one in the entire history of the family could achieve the same results that El could achieve at his age, and that soon he would become so strong that he could amaze the entire empire with your skills. Sylphyr also said that with Ella's genius, the Einhart family could become not just the most powerful family in the Bliard Empire, but even the most powerful family on the entire continent. Sylphyr then asked her father if he was ready to accept her son as a new member of the Einhart family, to which Marquis replied that it was too big a decision to make right now. Sylphyr interrupted her father, and said that she came here specifically to make him one of them, and that they must make a decision right now, which surprised her father. Sylphyr said that if they could not make a decision, then El would not tell their family the secret of creating magic stones. The Marquis was very much struck by how strong and decisive her daughter's character was, and he said that he would think about it. After this conversation, El decides to walk around the estate and talk to her about what happened to her during the conversation. Mom just said that everything would be fine, and that El just shouldn't think about it. While El and her mother were walking around the estate, they met Serena and Kaina. Mom immediately began hugging the girls and apologizing to them for having to leave them alone. The girls said that they were also very worried about them, after which their mother wanted to show the girls their rooms. El decides to stay in his room alone, where he could not stop thinking about how his mother spoke so boldly, and thought that the Marquis would approve of her conditions. After all his thoughts, El summoned his magic glasses, with which it was easier for him to concentrate. The glasses also reminded Ella of his past as a professional sports player. These magic glasses also allowed Ella to see various magical flows, and he decides to check what the Marquis was really up to. Then El decides to follow his grandfather a little, but before that he decides to use the magic of invisibility so that he does not notice him at the wrong moment. In a matter of seconds, El was already near the Marquis' room, from which he could learn all the details of his true plans. The Marquis told his eldest son that Ella had enough skills and abilities to become a new member of their family. However, the fact that El was in 5th grade at age 17 did not change the fact that he grew up in another country, and therefore would be a stranger to their family. But also the Marquis was worried that he had come here to avenge his father and for Sylphyr. The elder brother reminded his father that Sylphyr was a 6th grade master, and this could become a problem for them. The Marquis reminded his son that there were about 20 magicians in their estate who were better than her, and who could intervene if necessary. The Marquis also said that the Crown Prince sent him a reply letter in which he said that if the Marquis agreed, he would accept Sylphyr as a concubine. However, the eldest son was worried that if something didn't go according to plan, she would find out that their family was kidnapping talented magicians and brainwashing them, in order to later make them part of their association, which the Einhart family was using for personal gain. The Marquis immediately interrupted his son, and told him to shut up, since someone would be able to hear their conversation even under the magic of silence. While El was eavesdropping on the entire conversation, he noticed that in this room there are several special devices that even 6th grade magicians cannot turn off. Then El thought that if someone found out about their plan and about the kidnapping of talented magicians, it would become the biggest scandal in the entire history of the Bliard Empire. The eldest son said that he would no longer talk to the Marquis on this topic, to which the Marquis said not to worry about the prince. The prince was also involved in this whole matter, and he would not do anything that could potentially harm him. After that, he hands one throwing knife to his eldest son and asks him what he would do in his place. The eldest son realized that this was a test, and extremely unpleasant consequences would await him if he did not correct his mistake. Then he takes the knife and tells his father that first he will answer the prince that he is satisfied with such an offer, after which he would capture El and hold him hostage until Sylphyr reveals to them the secret of creating magic stones. He also added that when he learns the secret of creating magic stones, he will send Sylphyr to the prince, and if necessary, he is ready to use force and seal Sylphyr's magical abilities. He also added that he would brainwash Elu and make him a magician who would serve their family, which Elu himself did not like very much. The Marquis was pleased with his eldest son's plan, and said that he would now be the chief successor. Ella couldn't help but think about the heartlessness of this family, and the fact that he could have refused his mother's offer to go here from the very beginning.